Gentlemen, in this video, I want to give you the 5 best clitoris stimulation techniques. These techniques to stimulate the clitoris I have found to be the most effective, the most powerful, the most reliable for the majority of women. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes, a men's sex therapist who's worked with couples for over a decade. And today, I'm going to explain exactly how to stimulate female arousal in a way that feels natural, comfortable, and deeply pleasurable, especially as bodies change with age. There are lots and lots of different techniques to touch the clitoris and to stimulate the clitoris. And by all means, this list is not exhaustive, but I've chosen these 5 techniques as the most effective ways to stimulate the clitoris for 2 reasons. First of all, they will work more commonly. So, there might be some techniques to stimulate the clitoris that are very nice, but they work for only a small number of women. Secondly, there are some, kind of fiddly and technically difficult ways to touch the clitoris that are quite easy to get wrong and to hurt a woman. Or maybe they're just quite difficult to get right and to give a good sensation. So, over the years of working with lots and lots of different women, I would say that these 5 clitoral stimulation techniques work really consistently. They will work really well for most women. These techniques will stimulate the clitoris really well, will give it a really nice sensation, and they will be fairly easy for you to master and to perform. They're not technically complicated. But please also remember that the absolutely ultimate person who will tell you what is the best clitoral stimulation technique to use is going to be the woman herself. Because women are so different that there will be some kind of movement that works particularly well for her, and only she'll be able to tell you. So you have to explore it with her or it. And just to let you know before we start, I have a free practical training for you on these techniques where I explain them in more detail in a sequence how they all work together. So this free practical training is downloadable via the link in the description of this video below. Go ahead and download it. It's completely free. So a few basics I always have to repeat about touching the clitoris before we start. First of all, lubrication. You never touch the clitoris with a dry finger. Your finger always has to be wet with her own wetness or with a lubricant or with saliva. Second, you don't stimulate the clitoris if she's not turned on yet. You don't stimulate the clitoris to turn her on. She has to be already aroused and turned on before you start stimulating the clitoris. Otherwise, it's not going to feel good. And third, the basics of the sensitivity of the clitoris. So, when we're touching the actual clitoral head, not the kind of the other parts of the complex, it's basically a head covered by the hood. If you pull up any picture of it right now and look at it, I can't do it for you here because YouTube is always weird about things like this. I'm sorry, but it basically looks like a head wearing a hoodie. And when the woman is lying on her back, the head will be looking directly at you. So the frontal part of the clitoris is the exposed part, the face, and that part is far more sensitive, far more delicate. If you're going to touch that, you have to be very, very careful and lubricated. And the part over the hood is less sensitive, so you can touch it with more movement, with more firmness, and it's not so sensitive. But with the frontal part, you have to be very careful because it can be very uncomfortable and even painful otherwise. So the first clitoral stimulation technique I would use is your whole palm. The clitoris has a head that you normally see, and also legs that extend into the vaginal lips underneath. So when you use the whole palm, you're stimulating that whole area, legs and the head at the same time. The way to kind of target your palm there is to make sure that these 2 side fingers are on the lips and slightly pressing into them, and the bottom of the middle finger is on the clitoris. And that's a really, really good stimulation in the very beginning to warm up that whole area. You stimulate it all at the same time. So you're just moving around like really gently in all directions, just drowning in it. And it's also a really good stimulation technique to come back to later, much later when she's very aroused, and just use it with more pressure, more firmly, and then you'll stimulate that whole clitoral complex with the legs and the head really quite strongly for very strong sensation. Another good benefit is because it's not so precise, you can use it when you're struggling to actually find the head of the clitoris. The next technique that works really well for women is pressure. So with your middle finger, you are on the clitoris and you're just applying a little bit of pressure. And as you are pressing in, you're holding, and that sends a buzzing sensation on and on, which is the nice part about this stimulation technique. Then you let go for a little bit and you press in again. You can intensify this pressure gradually as she's getting more aroused, so it becomes a technique you can use throughout the stimulation. And in fact, you can build the whole stimulation of the clitoris in one go, just on this one technique. I have a video on this called How to Touch the Clitoris for a 30-minute tantric orgasm using just this one technique. So check it out. Now, the clitoris has the front part that's more exposed, more naked, and the top part, which is covered by the hood. So depending on how sensitive the woman is, you might want to be at the front with that pressure, with the exposed part. But you have to be very gentle, very careful, and lubricated. Or if that's too much for her, you can be on top of the clitoris, over the hood, using the same kind of pressure. The third technique that commonly works is tickling, and that means just very, very light brushing over the surface of the clitoris. Very, very light. Again, you could use it on the exposed part, on the frontal part of the clitoris, if the woman can take it. And if not, you can use it on the top part over the hood. Tickling is a bit of hit and miss for some women. For some women, this is exactly what they want, and it gives the perfect sensation with just a little bit of brushing. You just have to be quite careful and slow. This is not fast, it's slow. For some women, they really don't like it. They can't take it. So, you just have to try. Before I show you the last two moves, guys, can I please ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel? Because that really helps me to grow my channel and deliver more content like this to you and to other guys. Going from side to side over the clitoris head is another favorite. And here it kind of depends on what kind of pressure you're doing. That depends on her sensitivity. You have to read her. If she's flinching too much, you're doing too much. If she's inhaling nicely, then it's a good amount of pressure. It can be anything from just really quite light brushing from side to side over the clitoris to quite firm kind of flipping. If you imagine the clitoris head being flipped from side to side, you will just need to try what kind of pressure she needs. And the fifth move is quite similar in that way, and that is circles on the head of the clitoris. Now, again, there is a lot of variation, and you have to play with what she likes best. So the circles can be very light. First of all, kind of very light brushing, or they can be really quite muscular, like almost like a massage, whereby moving your finger, you're kind of like flipping the head around. And that can feel really nice if the woman enjoys that kind of firm touch. Circles can also be more kind of away from the clitoris if the woman is really sensitive, or they can be more kind of closer on the actual head of the clitoris if she can take that sensation, if that's not too much for her. So with these two last techniques for stimulating the clitoris with the side to side and the circles, I would only use them at the end of the stimulation of the clitoris and not at the beginning. It's going to be way too much movement at the beginning. Generally, with all movements, with all techniques for stimulating the clitoris, it's not just about which technique you are using. It is also about what intensity and at which part of the process. And remember that with all these moves, you have to really check in with the woman, what kind of pressure, what kind of speed she likes on all these techniques, because there will be a dramatic difference from woman to woman. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes, and I'll see you in the next one.